9 years I've been on YouTube. I have never made a controversial video, anything in that nature. That changes tonight. You know, I'm very disappointed in the American people because this July 4th marks a special birthday, a birthday of this nation, 250 years of us being alive. Alive as in we're free from Great Britain. Great people who fought for something that was bigger than mankind. Because if we lost that war, for all we know, you and I, we're mere slaves to the Great Britain people. And we're still under colonization of a power greater than us, Great Britain, one of the greatest powers of the 1700s. We forgot what freedom means. A freedom of, I'm in my own place. I can toss and twirl and ride the reindeer and drink Diet Pepsis and slide across the floor and say, whoop-de-doo. You know, we forgot what opinions meant. We forgot what peer pressure can do to people. We forgot what values are, idioms, important constructs of, social constructs of, just moral principles of, don't swear in public. If your grandma doesn't want to hear it, guess what? You shouldn't be saying it in public, right? What happened to that rule? What happened to, a country that we're supposed to be celebrating on July 4th? And we will. Oh, we will. We'll have a beer, we'll have a drink. We'll sit there and, go out there and have hors d'oeuvres. We'll have, hot dogs, hamburgers, Cracker Jacks, fireworks. But then, man, July 5th comes around, the next day. We're going right back on Twitter. We're going right back on ABC News. We're going right back on CNN, right back to Fox News. We're going right back to that Yahoo comment section page. We're talking to Falcon3780. That's his username, right? I'm making it up. And we're sitting there going back and forth with Falcon3780. And we're wasting 3 hours of our day on July 5th talking about the incident that happened in Florida last night. And we're more worried about Falcon 3780 than we are of our 7-year-old upstairs. We're more worried, right, about Tom across the street. Well, hold on, I better go make sure that he's safe. Hold on now. Hold on, I better look. Oh, there he is. Holy shit, hurry up, we better go back. I'm more worried about what Tom is doing across the street than my 6-year-old daughter downstairs is trying to learn Spanish. And actually, it's quite brilliant because if you learn Spanish and be bilingual, it's a powerful tool in today's world. And I'm more worried about watching Tom across the street because he's doing two things controversial on both parties. He's sitting there and he has a concealed weapon. That's legal. And even though he got it and obtained it legally, and it's in his own quarters, in his home, legal, unfortunately, I am more worried about that because and again, I'm making this up as a story. I'm not saying what party I affiliate with whatever. I'm giving general stances of politics of this video as a sitcom, a video to enjoy. I'm more worried about him because I don't agree with the gun laws we're playing here. Okay, maybe I do, maybe I don't. That's for you to decide later. Okay. I'm also more worried about because he has a boyfriend. He can't do that because the Bible says they can't. And I'm more worried about Tom's life than I am about my own 7-year-old son. And I'm more worried about that than helping my daughter, at least attempt to help, right? Learn Spanish. And we could create some memories of her before she grows up. And she won't be in my house anymore. What happened to us worrying about ourselves, bettering ourselves each and every day? What happened to motivation? You know, Tom Brady said it best. One of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Because one thing I learned in this world is when you want to learn things and you want to sit there and truly better yourselves. And I'm not talking about you waking up one day on January 1st, you know, and you telling yourself, I have New Year's resolutions. I want to sit there and swear less. I want to sit there and work out. I want to sit there and go to church twice a week to help those families in need, not just Sunday once a week. I'm talking about bettering yourself in terms of social constructs, in terms of, you know, understanding where you fit in this world in ideology. Tom Brady said it the best in his documentary that was called The Man in the Arena. He made a claim that the New England Patriots were so good for so many years because Mike Vrabel, Ronnie Harrison, great individuals on that football team, Bill Belichick, a leader at the helm, they would sit there at 6 a.m. and wake up. And they would wake up with one sentence in their head. I'm going to get an edge on you. I'm going to get an edge on you. And you thought you got an edge. But then at 5:59, the left tackle, Jared V, woke up. And he said, oh, I'm going to get an edge on you. I've already worked out twice this morning. What have you done? And Jared V went to bed that night smiling because he woke up before Tom Brady did. But you know what? The left outside linebacker, Sam C, woke up. And what he said was, oh, you know, you're funny, Jared V, because I woke up at 5:58. I peeled my banana. I struck my orange. I made orange juice. I got an edge on you. Right? The mentality of truly wanting to get better for themselves. I want to sit there for the greater good of I want to go out there and better myself for my football team. I'm getting an edge on you tonight. And when you have that mentality, there is nobody that can stop you. And the New England Patriots almost made history that year. Almost going undefeated in the whole regular season and even the playoffs, but they came one game short to the New York Giants. It's a great documentary. I'll go watch it. I learned great things from Robin Williams, a man who was before my time in terms of making his classics. Miss Doubtfire, Dead Poet Society. Such great films with great messages. One of them being, let's listen.
Break out. Conformity. The difficulty in maintaining your own beliefs in the face of others. For those of you, I see the look in your eyes like, I would have walked differently. Well, ask yourselves why you are clapping. And we all...
One of the most powerful things he said in his lifetime in a movie quote was, people say, I would have walked differently. But then ask yourself, why were you clapping? Why are we sitting there being fools of ourselves? Why are we sitting there saying, you know, wow, someone should have saved that person, or wow, how dare you let that person do that? But you sat there, didn't you? And you didn't do anything about it. You sat there and clapped. You know, it's an idiom, but you sat there and you just did what everyone else did. They just clapped, but they didn't take the action. Conformity, peer pressure. We feel like we have to conform to those around us. I feel like in my life, I have been one of the biggest anomalies there are. Because I didn't always fit in with the crowds. You know, I am someone who, at 24 years old, I can talk about Social Security, retirements. I can talk about real estate. I can talk about so many adult-like things. When I was a young boy, I would go to bed at night with my mom. We would sit around and talk about college at 11 years old. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm a little scared. And she said, what do you mean, Matt, you're scared? Let me guess, the dark? I said, no. I'm afraid these days are moving too quick, Mom. Because I'm going to grow up. And I've learned at a young age, Mom, that life is going too quick. And, you know, those are the things I remember the most in my life, because it's only in your memory now. And I just remember a lot of things that I just cherish in my childhood, because I didn't worry about the outside noise. I didn't worry about what was happening, because people will always make the claim of, you know, you have to be well-rounded. You have to sit there and know everything in the news, because you might go down the street and someone asks you a question about it, and if you don't know it, you're going to look stupid. Well, to that, I disagree. I have lived my life, 24 years. I never turn the news on. I'm not worried about it. Because what I care about is what's right in front of me. My bills, my friends, my family, my job. People who are counting on me to deliver something. To deliver just my presence. Not my mind that is tied in what Tom's doing across the street. Not my mind that is tied into what that CNN comment, Falcon 3780, of what he was saying in that public forum. I have lived my entire life of just worrying about what Matthew Kennedy has to do in front of him. And that doesn't mean I don't care about people. That doesn't mean I'll push their chair in for them. That doesn't mean that when someone asks me, how are you doing, Matt? I say, I'm good, and that's all I care about, and I go on my way. I say, I'm doing great, but what really matters is, how are you doing, Stacy? Be thoughtful. Think about others. But it doesn't mean that we have to view people because they wear a police hat. We view them as the right party. Just because I'm a STEM guy and I love science and I love math and I love talking numbers, that doesn't mean I'm a liberal who adores science and, believes in global warming. I might believe in it. I might not be. That's for you to decide. All I'm trying to say is we can't sit there and as a nation watch one of the greatest most creative series of all time, with great cast members who built great character lines and great character developments, second of all time of Netflix. And we sit there with popcorn on New Year's Eve as a family, Christmas Day, and we watch the ending just to go on Twitter and have battles over how somehow the ending was political with a certain character. Why can't we just enjoy the show? Why can't we just enjoy the small things in life? A 12-ounce Diet Pepsi, without worrying about, oh, it's cancer causing, oh, it's... I could die tomorrow in a car crash. I could die tomorrow, apparently, if I cross a line with an ICE agent in Minnesota. I can die at any point in my life. It's just some people, we choose to fixate our life on certain things, when in reality, the only things that matter are right in front of you. People defend things they don't know what they're defending. They said in 2020, somehow COVID became political. It's a disease. It's an illness. Why can't we just worry about the preservation of all lives? Finding a cure, finding a shot, somehow finding a vaccine, or somehow going about mandatory vaccination is now affiliated with the left party. And when the right party came to my college campus on 2020, there were people saying it's my body, my choice. I'm not getting that shot. I didn't say anything. I turned my head. I went to my school class that day and I learned about great polynomials that day with Dr. Filipova. But when I went to bed that night, I thought about it more. And I thought about how could someone say my body, my choice on the right party when they're on paper against abortion, which is my body, my choice. And then I slept and woke up the next morning, got my breakfast, and went to class again. And that's when I realized, in that math classroom, politics is all bullshit. It's just meant to divide you. It's just meant to divide what's going on a 250-year-old nation. And we're going to sit there and let people get under your skin, rage bait. Tune out the noise, America. Tune out everything around you that is full of hate, stir, panic, controversy, and just start worrying on what truly matters. The moment you turn 18, go to college, go serve the country, go get a trade, go do what you love. You want to be here by 21, go be there. How am I going to get there? Well, at 18, I have to do this, learn this. I have to go and be an apprentice here by 20 years old, travel to Guam, do this. I have to get my, whatever. A lot of people today are talking about illegal immigrants. They're talking about how somehow they're responsible for the housing market. I mean, the last time I checked, though, to buy a house, unless it's in cash, if it's going to be mortgaged, it has to be approved through documentation of social security numbers. It has to be approved through lenders. And the right party is blaming illegal immigrants for the bad housing market. I'll go both sides here just to cover my ass. The left side is blaming the right side for some of these deaths, when in reality, guns can be used to defend yourself. It's just people choose to use it the wrong way. Why do we do that? Why do we just blame people without taking accountability for what the truth is? Why do we sit there and hate people because it's what my party says we shall defend? What happened to believing what you truly believe in? What happened to compromising? Doesn't exist. Divorces now are at all-time high. If people can't even figure out a marriage, how are you supposed to have a whole room, not be split with their party voting? People are so caught up with illegal immigrants when there's a known fact on Google that, Melania Trump or Melanie Trump, however you say her name. Again, I don't, watch the news. I don't. The first lady, Miss Trump, was actually an illegal immigrant in the 90s. She was a model. And she was here illegally. Elon Musk was here illegally. He got his first job as an apprentice, and he started off as a skilled worker, and he worked all his way up. But when he first got that job, it was on documentation that he actually was an illegal immigrant. But now, 25 years later, or 30 years later, everyone just forgets that. And it goes both ways. I don't want people to, view that as you're attacking the right party. I'm sure, those were the two most people I saw on Google that actually made sense to say their names. There's some other random people who have still made an impact on American history, but they were actually, in their time, illegal at the time. And I'm sure they were from the Democrat Party, whatever. But as of right now, those two really were a mic drop in terms of what's at stance in today's wars, bloodbaths. We're killing people over this stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The last thing I'm going to say about that is just, the whole idea of what this country once was. Stories of how people came over and started with nothing besides 2 pennies in their pocket, and they built their home from scratch with maybe help from some neighbors, or they used every part of their paycheck to support their family during the Great Depression. What happened to stories that are told today from back then of individuals who started with nothing and came from a country, and they came with just great stories? But we choose to forget those stories. And we're too focused in on, all the wrongs that we overlook the rights. It's like, me being a teacher. They always say in education, sometimes you have to stop overlooking the good kids in your class. Stop being so worried all the time about discipline and remarks and redirects and you're forgetting about the kids who always do the right things. Those are the kids that are overlooked. We spend too much time on the bad kids as teachers, our attention, that we forget the good kids who always do what they're supposed to do. And we as educators and the education community always tend to tell stories about how, yeah, I was a teacher, but I got out of there because kids are so bad. But really, are they so bad? Or did you just focus too much attention on 2 kids, 3 kids, when 17 plus of them were there doing their job? So I want to understand that you have to make sure you see the greater good of all arguments before you make a decision. And I'm never ever going to tell anyone my political party. I never ever will. Because that's between me and myself. And I just wish more people would keep that principle of I'm worried about me, my family, my true friends that matter. And I'm not going to conform to anyone. Thanks for watching. We'll go from there.